Hi, it's Louisa at the Pilates workshop. I'm just going to give you a little reminder of a sequence we've done in class this term. Calling it Happy Hips, so really helpful for hip release and hip mobility. So we'll come into your relaxation position. So set yourself up with your neutral pelvis, legs hip width, maybe using a little cushion under your head if you need to for your upper body alignment. Let's have hands just on your hip bones with feet back, let the ribs soften down. And have the legs a little wider than hip width and turned out. So we're going to start with knee rolls. So one leg is going to just open out like a knee drop and the other leg's going to roll in, but the movement's from the hip and we're trying not to let your pelvis join you and they come back to the centre. So you can either do the leg opening out and leg coming in separately or begin to do them like the wipers coming together. So one leg's opening out, one leg's rolling in. You do that movement as you breathe out in the centre, inhale, come back, and exhale, centre, over to the other side. So that should just get things loosened up and start getting those hips moving in that external and internal rotation. So once you've done a few of those, we're going to add on a kind of zigzags movement to a spine curl. So keep the legs wide and slightly wider than hip width and still turned out, but you might need the heels a little bit closer to your bottom. And you probably won't need your head cushion as you go into that spine curl movement. So the legs start open, and just as you inhale, let's let the legs roll in towards each other. So the movement's still from the hips. So the knees will contact or just be heading towards each other. They don't have to stay glued together. So they've rolled in towards each other. Now as I exhale and centre, I'm going to come up to my spine curl. So at the top, I'm going to inhale, open the legs out, and then exhale, spine curl all the way back down to neutral, and then inhale to come back again. So I can breathe out, centre, begin to peel up, inhale, open, and then exhale, releasing back down. So try not to combine the turning in, turning out as you're going up and down. You've got almost like a pause at the top that you change that orientation of your legs. You can also reverse the movement. So start coming up with the legs open and turned out, and then at the top they could roll in towards each other and then you peel back down. So you open out, still coming up as you exhale and centre, inhale, the legs roll in towards each other, try not to lose height through your spine curl, and then peeling and releasing back down. Okay, and then I'm going to show you another little movement which might not be suitable for everybody's knees and hips, but the previous exercise should hopefully have been a good preparation for it. So for this one, it's just please only carry on if it's comfortable to sit in a wide mermaid position. So both legs are pretty much at 90-degree angle. So I've got one sit bone on the mat, the other one, the buttock probably lifted off the mat a little bit, but I'm trying to be as lengthened and lifted as possible in this position. So I'm not rotated or leaning forward or leaning back. I'm going to put my hand on the hip of the leg that's going behind the other hand on the mat. And to start with, I'm just going to open up this hip, so roll that hip forward and then return. So I'm always lifting the buttock off the mat and do that at least 5 times. So it's increasing our internal medial rotation of the hip. So at least 5. That might be enough. And some of you might want to add on, and the add-on is you turn and look towards the foot that's behind you, your foot that's behind you, and then see if you can maybe lift that foot and possibly even the shin. So we're not aiming to twist in the knee, it's more that you're increasing that internal movement of the hip and then lower it down. So it might just be you waggle your foot or you waggle your toes or possibly the shin, and we've got that increase in that like a Charleston type movement of the thigh and the hip joint. So up to 5. I think this is my last one. And I'm going to lower it down. To change sides, you either find your own way there, or you can almost imagine you've got little grabbers on your knees that you can pick yourself up and then go straight over to the other side. I'm going to just shimmy round so you can see me a little better as we do the other side. So set up with that 90-90 position. Hips as stacked as you can, although one's going to be propped up a little bit. So have one hand on the mat, other hand on the hip of the leg that's behind you. So try not to start twisted, you're lengthened up and facing forward. So the first part is we're just rolling and lifting that hip forward. So we did at least 5 of those. So that butt lifts a bit further away from the floor. You're opening up the front of that hip. It should feel quite a nice movement, but it is uncomfortable for your knees to get into this position. Please don't force yourself there. So the next movement is that you look towards your foot that's behind you and just see if you can lift your foot, maybe even your shin, which isn't twisting in the knee, it's increasing that internal movement of the hip, that internal rotation, and then lower it down. You'll probably notice it feels quite different one side to the other. This side is a little easier for me than the previous side. So at least 5 of those. Keep looking towards it, I'm just checking on in view. So I think that's my 5, but I might have miscounted. And then imagine that you've got those little grabbers that are going to pick up your legs so you can easily, hopefully, switch between each side. But this movement is all about your hips, not forcing your knees into any position. I feel like we're shuffling away from you. I'm going to head back now. But I hope that's helpful. Give it a try. Let me know how you get on. And thanks very much for joining me. See you soon. Bye-bye.